A few videos back, I showed you how to create anonymous functions using the fn macro in a simple way without pattern matching. But it's important to realize the pattern matching you've seen with named functions over the last few videos can also be done with anonymous functions. So how do you use pattern matching with anonymous functions? Well, I'll show you with an example. Imagine we're working on our exit polling application, and we'd like to write a function that transforms atom representations of political parties to a logo file to be displayed in the browser. I'll create a variable named logo file, and I'll bind it to an anonymous function using the fn macro. When I showed you anonymous functions a while back, I showed you the form where you optionally specified one or more arguments, then you used an arrow to delimit the function head from the function body, and then you closed out the function definition with the end keyword. But here's the thing. You can have more than one function head and body in an anonymous function. So for example, you could have one set of arguments that was handled by its own function body, then you could have another set of arguments that's handled by its own body, and so on. So how does this function know what particular head and body to use? Well, it happens via pattern matching. Well, let me show you. So in this new anonymous function, I'll create a function head which has one argument, and this particular function head will only be used when the provided argument is the Democrat atom. The body of this function will just return a file named donkey, as that's the mascot for this party. Now I'll create another function head and body for the Republican Party, which returns a file named elephant. Next I'll add a function clause for the Libertarian Party, then I'll add another function clause for the Green Party. Okay, for discussion's sake, let's say that these are the only political parties. Well, if these are the only political parties, are we done creating this function? Probably not. I think we should add one more function clause. Can you think of why I want to add one more function clause? Well, what do you think will happen if we call this anonymous function passing in a value that isn't one of these four atoms? If that happens, a match error will get thrown, which you probably don't want. So I'll add one last clause that matches everything, and we'll just have it return some other image. Okay, before we try out our new function, I want to point out a couple of things. In previous videos on named functions, we used guards in the function head, and even though we didn't use guards in this anonymous function, we could have if we needed to. Another important rule to know about anonymous functions is that each clause must have the same arity. What exactly do I mean by that? Well, all the function clauses you see here have an arity of 1. In other words, they all take one parameter. If you didn't know any better, you might be tempted to do something like the following example. Let's say there are two possible sizes of logo, a normal sized and a small size. So to handle this new scenario, you might be tempted to add another function clause that allows for two parameters, where the first parameter is the atom Democrat, and the second is the small atom, and the return value is some other image name. This new clause I added, with an arity of 2, results in a compiler error. The reason why this doesn't work is because it's a restriction of the Beam virtual machine that our Elixir code runs on. Okay, let's try out our new anonymous function. So I'll create a variable named file, and I'll bind it to the value you get from calling our new function, logo file, then in parentheses I'll pass in the libertarian atom. Does this function call look correct to you? Well, nope, it's not quite right. Remember, to call anonymous functions, you've got to put a dot between the variable name and the opening parentheses. Next, I'll print out the value in the file variable, then I'll save the file and try it out. Okay, as you can see, statue.ping printed out, so it seemed to work. Cool. Now, some of you are probably still bothered by something in this file, which is this little guy right here. What's with the dot here? Why can't we just call this function without the dot? like it can in most languages? Well, we'll answer that question in the next video.